Okay, hi. I'm Jaron. My name is Jaron. I'm 28.
Yeah.
Let me think of some defining qualities. So my Chinese is bad, just like most of the young adults my
Yeah.
age.
Yeah.
Uh, I like to think I'm a young adult, and
Mm-hmm.
I still have, especially this year because of COVID, I have a lot of nostalgia recently. You can see in my room, I put up all these parts of my childhood,
Okay.
just to remind
Yeah.
myself to stay young.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
think recently with all the 11/11 and Black Friday stuff, I realized I'm a really impulsive shopper.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
so I think that kind of speaks into my natures. I like to take risks.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I take calculated risks.
Yeah.
I like to explore. I like to try new things.
Yeah.
I think part of my personality is also I get kind of bored easily, so I kind of jump from thing to thing. So I have
Okay.
various interests: playing guitar, dancing,
Uh-huh.
playing games, um, building stuff,
Yeah.
learning.
So yeah,
So
thanks so much for that introduction, Jaron. I mean, tell us a bit more about your work as well.
Okay, so I also didn't mention actually I graduated with a Bachelor of Environmental Studies. So
Uh-huh.
maybe it's not too surprising that right now I'm working in this company called Wateroam.
Yeah.
We are a social enterprise, and what we do is we develop uh, water purification technology that is specifically built for emergency response as well as
Mm-hmm.
rural development.
That that sounds like a really great thing that you're doing. I mean, tell me more about Wateroam and what it does beyond like the water purification technology. Like, what is the impact that you are trying to make?
I think it all stands for our vision. Our vision is to build a world without prolonged thirst, and what that
Mm-hmm.
means is, really improving the lives, living, and livelihood of the people that we serve. We try to specifically focus, especially on even our neighbors, like within Southeast Asia, Malaysia, Philippines, Indonesia.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be surprised at just how many people there are within this region. Like, a
Yeah.
few hundred million, and a lot, and like more than half of them don't have access to safe drinking water.
Yeah. So, Jaron, I mean, it sounds like you are doing very meaningful work, and I know that you also traveled a lot, like before COVID. I mean, can
Yeah.
you share a story or impact that continues to drive you to do this work every day?
Right. Yeah, I think every time I travel and I get to see where our inventions go and the people they impact, I think that they always impact me. But I
Mm-hmm.
would say probably some of the most impactful ones was my first trip overseas for deployment.
Mm-hmm.
So this was I was on the job for about 3 to 4 months already.
Yeah.
So that was a couple of years back. Um, and I already had traveled a couple of times for like exhibitions and events,
Mm-hmm.
but this is the first time I was traveling with a client. I
Yeah.
didn't go with any of my colleagues. It was just me and
Yeah.
my client, and we went to Bangladesh
Yeah.
to support the Rohingya refugees.
Mm-hmm.
So he bought a couple of our systems, then we went over and installed. And
Yeah.
I think what really impacted me was there was one place we went to where there were these kids. So
Yeah.
this was like a religious school,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of Rohingya they are Muslim,
Yeah.
and they were just singing their hearts out and
Yeah.
singing like like prayer songs.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt very moved by that. Even in the midst of their suffering, that they were crying out. With um,
Yeah.
almost want to say it's tangible. Like you could feel like the hope and the faith and
Mm-hmm.
desperation. And I also noticed, uh, there was this one guy who was just like kneeling down in the middle of his like
Mm-hmm.
workspace. So his workspace was actually just like digging the ground and clearing the trees to make
Yeah.
space so that we can build more shelters there. And he was just
Mm-hmm.
like praying and worshiping, and I was like, even in this crisis, people hold on to their faith, and because faith is an integral part of my life as well. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that really impacted me. But beyond that, seeing how I could even just take my water purification system because it's pretty
Mm-hmm.
small. So I pump it, produce clean water,
Mm-hmm.
and see the kids smile.
Yeah.
Generally because of what they face there, they
Mm-hmm.
are a bit wary of like strangers. You know, but maybe because
Yeah.
I don't look like their aggressors, like this funny looking Chinese boy they never seen before.
Okay. Okay.
So generally, yeah, it was a pretty good experience. People there don't seem open at first, but they're very appreciative.
Mm. Yeah, that's great, Jaron. So, I mean, it sounds like you are doing a lot with Wateroam. So, What are some of the challenges you are facing at Wateroam?
Well, I guess the challenge of just about any startup, and beyond that, because we are a pretty young company, we've been
Yeah.
around for 6 years. We still consider ourselves a startup,
Mm-hmm.
but we're not like a giant tech startup. Those
Yeah.
that Silicon
Yeah.
Valley get like millions and billions in funding within a few years. We
Yeah.
still very
Yeah.
much focus on hardware, not
Mm-hmm.
not much software. Although there's that part we're developing as well, and we're trying to serve the poor people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with that means that your market, isn't really. I mean, the market is huge, right? But the amount to pay, the amount of money they have in order to pay for some of these products and services, not so much. Um, so then, I mean, because we're a social enterprise, we're doing this for good, but
Yep.
the sustainability part, the revenue generation,
Mm-hmm.
that's the part that's difficult. And I'm thankful that we've been around for 6 years, but it's
Yep.
still a long journey ahead, especially with COVID, right?
Yep.
I think one of the biggest challenges for us will depend on uh, relationships that are built on almost like friendship. I want to say it's almost like friendship because we are with
Mm-hmm.
the corporate. These are a lot harder to build in this when you can't travel. And
Mm-hmm.
given that our product is very demonstrable, means like
Yep.
you need to see to believe it. Um, these are some of the challenges. And for me personally, because given that I'm very much motivated by purpose,
Mm-hmm.
and a huge part of my job, the purpose of it, I can only kind of see it when I am with a beneficiary, when I'm talking to the
Yep.
customer, when I see them using the product.
Yep.
So the most recent would be because of the recent typhoons in the Philippines,
Mm-hmm.
and we had some Singaporean donors donate filters to their domestic helpers, family
Yep.
back in the Philippines. Then the family, the husband of this helper actually called me
Mm-hmm.
to settle some admin things. He started thanking me, and I felt like
Yeah.
suddenly felt like, well, yeah, I haven't felt this like
Yep.
um this almost like fulfillment that I'm helping someone in a long time. Even though I felt kind of bad because I'm not really helping someone. I'm just helping facilitate this delivery. You
Mm-hmm.
know, even though my company is one that produce the products, but it's
Yep.
actually his wife's employer that paid for it. Um, but
Mm-hmm.
even just these small moments where I can recognize that the things we do have an impact on people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so with COVID, without traveling, it's a lot harder to have these kind of moments.
Yeah. So thanks for sharing that story, Jaron. I mean that sounds very moving. That you feel that your work has meaning, and I think what you said just now about hardware and software, and I think also it's hardware, right? Like what's inside your
Yeah.
heart, and I guess my question would be like, as a millennial, you're young, you could do all these like great things with your life. What specifically made you choose like this path?
Wow. Okay. It's a really long story, but
Oh,
maybe I'll just
okay.
keep it short.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe because I'm a bit of an idealist.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people my generation tend to be a bit idealistic because we haven't really had to go through a lot of hardship or suffering to get to where we are.
Yeah.
Our parents have done a lot to, and
Yeah.
ensure, at least for myself, my parents have done a lot to ensure that I don't have to worry about
Mm-hmm.
their their financial status. They can take care of themselves pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
But my heart has always been towards wanting to go overseas, helping the poor.
Yeah.
At the same time, I always had this idea in mind that I wanted to have a useful skill to do so, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and so that I can be invited to these countries and actually have a reason to go there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so what I mean by that is that with something that's a bit more technical or a bit more as part of a
Yeah.
business. So I think business is the thing that drives economies, and a lot of poor people they escape our poverty through education and business.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not much of an educator myself. I have no patience to teach. So
Yeah.
I went the business route. And also the way it fell into my lap is just pretty divine
Yeah.
through people connections that I never knew before. And suddenly someone. And so throughout university, I actually wanted to learn about water
Mm-hmm.
for the purpose of going overseas to help people with water
Yeah.
eventually. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I didn't know that people were doing this back then. So I just did my 4 years in university and ended up at the near the end of it, suddenly I met someone who I told this dream to, and she was like, "Oh, I know someone who's like doing
Mm-hmm.
exactly what you're talking about. He's running a business that does that." And
Mm-hmm.
that's how I got acquainted with Wateroam. And that's how I eventually joined. So
Yeah.
in a sense, it's a part of me kind of like following my passion in studying and learning about these things.
Yeah.
On the other hand, there's also that divine aspect where, I just was at the right place at the right time, and I met
Mm-hmm.
the right people who
Yeah.
also like aligned with my values and the vision that I had for myself. So I think that's the other important thing that I think, sometimes you just gotta, I almost want to say lucky or blessed
Mm-hmm.
to meet people who
Yeah.
share their vision.
Yeah. So, Jaron, you pointed out something important there, that as millennials, like sometimes we can be idealistic and not very pragmatic. I mean,
Mm,
for you, like, what is your advice on balancing both of them, especially in a society
mm,
like Singapore, where you are seen to need like a house, a car to be
mm.
seen as like successful?
Right. Okay. Wow, that's so multi-layered. I'll be
Yeah.
lying if I say I didn't struggle with this, because honestly, joining a startup and the how much I knew I'll be get remunerated compared to my colleagues.
Yeah.
Um, and a lot of it just stems from comparison. I mean, if I really look at, even when I started having, and even now my pay isn't amazing. If I look at really like my base needs, uh, what I need to pay for, I'm
Mm-hmm.
actually okay. In fact, I just bought like a gaming computer doing
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
development sales.
Yeah.
But um, so one thing is that I just try not to compare.
Mm-hmm.
At least even if I do, it's just to see what people are doing, but do not then put my value on that. Because previously, I think there was a time where I I considered even just going for different interviews just to hear how much I'll be valued in another company.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and I think, well, it may be good because then it helps you to negotiate for a better contract. But
Mm-hmm.
given the circumstances and I know about my company, and how we're all sacrificing together,
Yeah.
there really isn't that much point other than to make myself feel better. And it probably
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't make me feel better if I really found out.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is really understanding your priorities and objectives. I guess for me, like I mentioned, I'm able to do this because my family is financially stable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's not a big deal to me to look to the future and like think about starting a family. Because right now
Yeah.
I'm single. I don't have to
Yeah.
worry about getting a house
Mm-hmm.
or getting a family. I don't really see that as success either.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I wouldn't give this advice to everyone. It also depends on your personality. Because as
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier, I'm a bit more risk taker, a bit more individualistic in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
That allows me to then be able to travel overseas on my own and then explore the world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the advice I have to give is, you know, I think it's important to be pragmatic as well. You can't just live
Yeah.
on your own because you have responsibilities. You do
Mm-hmm.
have people you need to take care of. You should be grateful to your
Mm-hmm.
parents and take care of them, especially if they don't have a stable income.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that's where you just have to also learn how to live simply. Learn
Mm-hmm.
how to you know make do with what you have. Think positively.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just consider what are your non-negotiables, right? And everything else, just try to find ways to
Yeah.
save money and work out the best deal so that you can balance between your own current satisfaction and your future satisfaction. I think a lot of
Yeah.
people put a lot of emphasis on their supposed future satisfaction
Mm-hmm.
without really understanding that if you don't change your mindset and your current satisfaction, you will never really feel satisfied in the future, even if you hit a certain target, like you earn a certain amount of money or get a certain amount of possessions.
Mm-hmm.
Your mindset doesn't change. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's really, you're just going for the next big thing and you're never satisfied.
Yeah. So, Jaron, that's really great advice. As millennials, like a lot of us like face this like deep like searching question, like what am I supposed to do with my life, or why am I here on earth? And I guess the deeper question is like, how does one discover one's calling in life? I mean, do you have any like thoughts or encouragements to millennials who are facing that at the moment?
Hmm. Yeah, I get that as a really common question. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I serve as a youth leader in church, and a lot of
Yeah.
people have this understanding, like, how do you find your calling? And a lot of people think it's just very defined, like, boom, like drop into you. One day
Yeah.
you
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
get a dream.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, speaking from my own experience, I would say mine was kind of like that actually. That kind of like it's a combination, right, of things like
Yeah.
the kind of like dream thing happening, but also
Mm-hmm.
like searching my own heart and saying, okay, where does my interest lie?
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, it all started from when I was at a church camp, and the speaker
Mm-hmm.
was talking about childhood dreams, and I realized I don't have a childhood dream.
Mm-hmm.
So not every person, you always hear those inspiring stories of people who had childhood dream and they reached it. I didn't have a childhood dream,
Yeah.
so I just searched my heart right during that session and thought, okay, what do I really want to do with my life? And
Mm-hmm.
what is the one key thing that as I was growing up, right, that kind of impacted me. And I remembered, especially when I was a new member in the church, when I was a teenager, that
Mm-hmm.
I just want to help people. I want to go overseas. I want to help people. I've been
Mm-hmm.
on overseas trips. I've seen people, and I thought, okay, I want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I try to link it to, okay, what am I studying right now? Because doing the church camp was just before I entered university,
Mm-hmm.
like after I finished army. And I thought, okay, I'm studying environmental studies, and
Yeah.
I kind of felt like that's where my heart led me to, because in my
Mm-hmm.
mind I was open to a few options,
Mm-hmm.
and I try to marry those things together. Like, okay, how do I help people and go
Yeah.
overseas and help people and with a useful skill, and have environmental studies at the same time? So I
Mm.
thought, oh, water is kind of like in between.
Yeah.
It kind of like does both, marries both. So I
Mm-hmm.
said, okay, let me just then pursue the knowledge, and understanding of water first,
Mm-hmm.
and then see how things work out. So there's kind of like an equal side of both, like, you
Yeah.
know, what you wish for and dream for, and then kind of working towards it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but how it turns out in the end, right, it can be totally different. So I didn't see myself in a sales and business development,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing, in business development.
Yeah.
I'm not super technical, although I know some of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but having the geography and water background does help. So, and you can never really chart your own. You can try as much as you want to chart your path on, like, say, on this end or on this end, right?
Yeah.
But you know you need to there needs to be a destination where these
Mm-hmm.
things meet, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of that actually just comes from divine opportunity and
Mm-hmm.
relationships. So the other thing I would say then is build relationships,
Mm-hmm.
um, network, talk to people. Don't be afraid to share your dreams with people, because you never know who they might link you up with.
Yeah.
And that's the thing you really kind of can't really force. You can just open yourself to opportunities and meet new people and talk to people, but you never know who you meet.
Yeah.
So you can only work on the things that you can work on, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
read up, watch videos, uh,
Yeah.
continue to inspire yourself. I think listening to TED Talks as well, or listening to an inspiring speaker on
Yeah.
Spotify, these things really help to kind of like grow that passion, so that
Mm-hmm.
you can continue to learn, and then
Mm-hmm.
you just kind of hope or pray that you meet the right people along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great advice. Thanks so much, Jaron. I guess before we ended, was there anything you wanted to add that I haven't asked today?
Uh, it feels kind of odd that as well I'm trying to give advice to millennials, given that I'm still in this situation at 28. I think one other advice I'd like to give is,
Yeah.
really just stay real and vulnerable, and try to surround yourself with people who can understand. I think what people are really looking for, especially in this age, is community, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all this talk about pursuing your dreams and all that. Honestly,
Mm.
it can become very vulnerable, because when you it feels like you're not meeting them, it ties into a lot of things. Your dream is kind of like your escape from your current reality,
Yeah.
and a lot of people have a lot of present struggles,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of times if you don't see a way towards your dream, you lose hope.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's how a lot of people kind of like end up, going through the motion, and then just kind of like wasting their life away.
Yeah.
And when I say waste your life away, not saying that what you do is wasting your life, but more of your mindset and mentality as you're doing these things. You're thinking like, why am I doing all this?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, try to find community, whether it's amongst your old friends or church, or even, maybe talking to you, John, and finding like minded people.
Yeah.
Um, community is so important for that reason. And then as you share your struggles, sometimes you find encouragement and hope for what's ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jaron. So staying real and having a community.